This video we're going to talk about in-text citations. In-text citations are where we tell the reader where you found your information. So let's begin by talking about why this is important. First of all, it shows the research that you've done. In this project, we're asking you to research, we're asking you to look at professional websites, maybe from health websites. We're asking you to use work which other people have researched. This research will have been checked. By showing the different research that you've done, you will show us the work that you've put in, but also it will make your work more credible. By making your work more credible, what I mean is that you guys are in year 8, but this research that you use will have been carried out by professionals, people who have degrees and PhDs in their subject. Their work will have been checked numerous times, which makes your argument stronger by using these respected sources of information. Next, it shows academic honesty. You guys haven't done the research yourself in terms of the initial results. Yes, you've read about it online, but you didn't carry out the projects. You guys weren't in the science lab finding out this information for yourself. What we mean by academic honesty is that you're giving the people who did the research the credit. This doesn't make your argument weaker. In fact, it strengthens it. Again, as we said before, because these are professionals in the field who have done this work. Finally, if you do not tell us where you found your information from, this is called plagiarism. In other words, you're copying other people's ideas and you're trying to use them as your own. This is a polite way of saying that you're cheating. So you need to tell us where you found your information from. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about the different ways that you can do this within your essay in an academic way. First of all, we can use the phrase according to plus the name of the organization plus the year. So as we see these three different parts, according to is the expression which tells the reader that you are not using your own ideas, but you're using someone else's work. This is really important. As soon as we see these words according to, you're telling us this is not your own idea. This is a good way to start a citation. Secondly, we use the name of the author or the name of the company where you found the information from. If you don't know the author, I probably wouldn't use that information, purely because how do you know who wrote it? How do you know they're a good source of information? After that, we want the year. Now, the reason that we want the year is that we want to know it's the most up-to-date information possible. If something was written maybe 20 or 30 years ago, you have to ask yourself, can I find something which is more recent? Finally, after this expression, we'd usually use a comma. This is because this initial phrase doesn't have a verb, it doesn't need a subject. It's just an expression which says, this person said. After the comma then, we can just use a clause, which is just a subject, a verb, and an object, how you would normally write a sentence. So this is method 1. Method 2 is using the name of the organization, again we give the year, and then we use a verb. So, as we said before, initially we use the name of the author or the company. This will be followed by the year in brackets. Then we will use a verb which shows us that the information has come from somebody else. These verbs could be states, as is in the example. We could use report or the company discovered or this company revealed. There are other verbs which you could also use. After this, we can use the word that plus again a clause, which again is the subject, verb, and object. So we just continue the sentence as we normally would. A third method that we can use is by using a citation at the end. The citation will be in brackets, and the name of the company and the year will be separated by a comma in the middle. This is a mode of citation which is most often used when we're giving a quotation. So we're not changing the words, but we're using the words exactly from what the author originally wrote. So we have the first bracket, then it's the name of the company, then a comma, then the year of publication. So these are 3 different ways and 3 different methods that we can use for in-text citations. Other points that we should be careful of is that we should try to vary the methods. one way that I would write my essays is I would use method 1 the first time, then method 2, then method 3, and then I would rotate them again. So I would just use according to the first time, then I'd use a verb such as states or reported that the second, and then I'd use the brackets at the end for the third time. And then I just continue that cycle. Also, if we're using quotes, try to make your quotes as short as possible. Sometimes it's very difficult to reword things, and in that case I would use the quote. But you're trying to show us your skill in language, and you're also trying to show us that you understand the scientific research that you've done. If you just quote long text chunks of information, how do we know that you understand it? By writing it in your own words, you are showing us that you understand the science behind what you've done, and that's a really good thing to do in academic writing. In-text citations are required for quote statistics and for the ideas that you have used. So, just because you've used your own words doesn't mean you don't have to quote. You have used their ideas, so you need to use an in-text citation for that. So even if you are using things in your own words, please use an in-text citation. As we said before, citations support your work. They show that the research is coming from reliable information from people who have their relevant qualifications, and their work will already have been checked. If they're in for example, the NHS, if they were publishing work which was not reliable and which was a lie, then the public could sue them for millions of pounds perhaps. So they need to make sure their work is correct. Therefore, if you're using that in your essay, that's a really good source of information to use. I would say to you that anything you didn't know before your essay should have an in-text citation for it. So anything new that you've learned while doing this project, put a citation by it. It will again show us the research that you've done, making your work stronger. Some final points before we end this video are that if you're using the same source of information in different paragraphs, you need to use a new in-text citation. Even if it's the same company name and year, do it again. So in this paragraph 1, I've used the NHS. I'd say, according to the NHS, brackets 2017, close bracket, comma. And then if I'm using the same in my next body paragraph, again I will state, NHS 2015 states that, and then I'll continue with the information that I need. Even if you've already said it once, if you're using more information from that same source again, later in your presentation, it's really important that you use another citation. Finally, if you are using the same source of information within the same paragraph, we should also mention it again, but we don't need to use the full citation. If there's a gap, for example, if you use NHS, then Cancer Research UK, and then back to the NHS, then yes, you would need to say NHS again. But if you're using the same source, maybe in the next sentence or 2 or 3 sentences time, you could use these expressions. So the same source also states that, the author continues to explain that, or the NHS research also reveals that. And because there's this word that afterwards, you use a clause which is subject, verb, object after this expression. This will make your work, again, academically honest. It will make it stronger, more credible, and we'll be really happy with the research that you've done. So this brings us to the end of this video on in-text citations. Please make sure you're citing every new piece of information that you use in your work.